So I came to the library and I just stumbled across a book that I find very interesting. And the title is How to Do Nothing, Resisting the Attention Economy by Jenny Odell. And I think it's pretty interesting. I'm going to read the first chapter for you guys and I might take it home with me today. So again, it's called How to Do Nothing. First, introduction. Surviving usefulness. Redemption preserves itself in a small crack in the continuum of catastrophe. Walter Benjamin. Nothing is harder than nothing. In a world where our value is determined by our productivity, many of us find our every last minute captured, optimized, or appropriated as a financial resource by the technology we use daily. We submit our free time to numerical evaluation, interact with algorithmic versions of each other, and build and maintain personal brands. For some, there may be a kind of engineered satisfaction in streamlining and networking of our entire lived experiences, and yet a certain nervous feeling of being overstimulated and unable to sustain a train of thought lingers. Though it can be hard to grasp before it disappears behind the screen of distraction, this feeling is in fact urgent. We still recognize that much of what gives one's life meaning stems from accidents, interruption, and serendipitous encounters, the off time, that a mechanistic view of experience seeks to eliminate. Already in 1877, Robert Louis Stevenson called busyness a symptom of deficient vitality and observed a sort of dead alive, hackened peopled out who are scarcely conscious of living except in the exercise of some conventional occupation. And after all, we only go around once. Seneca, in On the Shortness of Life, describes the horror of looking back to see that life has slipped between our fingers. It sounds all too much like someone waking from the stupor of an hour on Facebook. Look back in the memory and consider how many have robbed you of life when you were not aware of what you were losing. How much was taken up in useless sorrow, in foolish joy, in greedy desire, in all the allurements of society. How little of yourself was left to you. You will perceive that you are dying before your season. Shit. On a collective level, the stakes are higher. We know that we live in complex times that demand complex thoughts and conversations, and those, in turn, demand the very time and space that is nowhere to be found. The convenience of limitless connectivity has neatly paved over the nuances of in-person conversation, cutting away so much information and context in the process. In an endless cycle where communication is stunted and time is money, there are few moments to slip away and fewer ways to find each other. Given how poorly art survives in a system that only values the bottom line, the stakes are cultural as well. What the taste of neoliberal techno-manifest destiny and culture of Trump have in common is impatience with anything nuanced, poetic, or less than obvious. Such nothings cannot be tolerated because they cannot be used or appropriated and provide no deliverables. In the early 20th century, the surrealist painter Giorgio di Chirico foresaw a narrowing horizon of activities as unproductive as observation. He He wrote, in the face of the increasingly materialistic and pragmatic orientation of our age, it would not be eccentric in the future to contemplate a society in which those who live for the pleasures of the mind will no longer have the right to demand their place in the sun. Damn. I'll read that again. In the face of the increasingly materialistic and pragmatic orientation of our age, it would not be eccentric in the future to contemplate a society in which those who live for the pleasures of the mind will no longer have the right to demand their place in the sun. The writer, the thinker, the dreamer, the poet, the metaphysician, the observer. He who tries to solve a riddle or to pass judgment will become an anachronistic figure destined to disappear from the face of the earth like a Istosaurus or mammoth, like a dinosaur. I couldn't pronounce that, I'm sorry. This book is about how to hold open the place in the sun. It is a field guide to doing nothing as an act of political resistance to the attention economy. With all the stubbornness of a Chinese nail house blocking a major highway, I want this not only for artists and writers, but for any person who perceives life to be more than an instrument and therefore something that cannot be optimized. A simple refusal motivates my argument. Refusal to believe that the present time and place and the people who are here with us are somehow not enough. Platforms such as Facebook and Instagram act like dams that capitalize on our natural interest in others and ageless need for community, hijacking and frustrating our most innate desires and profiting from them. Solitude, observation, and simple conviviality should be recognized not only as ends in and of themselves, but inalienable rights belonging to anyone lucky enough to be alive. The fact that the nothing that I propose is only nothing from the point of view of capitalistic productivity explains the irony that a book called How to Do Nothing is in some way also a plan of action. I want to trace a series of movements, dropping out,